The point is that if you walk around thinking that you're smarter than everybody, or if you walk around thinking that you have nothing to learn from anybody, guess what? You're probably the least competent person in the room. So this is what I mean when I say, you don't know what you don't know. In order for you to understand some things about the world, you have to know some things about the world, which means you have to be open to learning about it. You have to be open to experience. You have to be open to examining yourself. That means it takes a bit of humility, some humbleness. I mean, almost nothing in the world is going to humble you more than that understanding of eventual death. But those people who hope for the death of the world, those are the people that are really concerning. So the really deep question there is to figure out, why is it that a person would come to believe that the whole world just deserves to die? All the people you love are there too. Isn't there something worthwhile about that? Isn't there something there that's worth saving? And if it's a matter of like, yeah, there's no one there I love, well, then that's the issue. The issue's not the world. The issue is with you. What is it about you that you can't find things on this planet to love? Because the world's so cruel and terrible. Well, what are you if you think the whole world should die? A big challenge of life is to try to find the things that make it all worthwhile. You've probably heard this before. Life is suffering. But what you can do is to find something that makes the suffering worthwhile. Something that helps you to transcend that suffering. And then by doing so, you make the world a better place, certainly for yourself, and then you decrease the level of suffering in the world. And there isn't anything that's probably a more ambitious project or something that's more of an imperative in our lives, because you can't do anything else in life until you find the first thing, which is a reason to do it, to have a why. Now, that story has that's a really deep line, man. To me, the most powerful line of that story, and probably one of the whole reasons I still teach it, is because of that line towards the end where he says she would have been a good woman too if there had been someone to have a gun to her head her whole life. In other words, when she was, like, some people read that and they think, it means like when she thinks that someone's threatening her, she'll do the right thing when someone's threatening her. Not even that, but when she thinks that she's about to die, that's when all of a sudden she starts to try to be a good person. And there's that word regret kind of pops up from the movie you're talking about. It's actually a pretty good movie. It's funny. Yeah, it's that's the funny thing about it. It's about the end of the world, but it's funny. And all the characters in there are hyperbolized. So they have like this like pseudo Elon Musk kind of character, who's autistic, but, completely detached, but supposed to be very smart. And it's great because he gets it wrong. Like, everybody is putting all of their faith in the smart people. And the smart people, of course, oftentimes have all the faith in the world in themselves. And of course, the question becomes like, why? Why would a smart person really think that they have everything figured out? Well, if you're the smartest person in the room and you think of things that nobody else thinks of, well, then you can start to believe that, wow, I might know everything. But it's a really important lesson about life. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. You don't know what you don't know. And in other words, in order to know what you don't know, you have to have some knowledge. If this makes any sense. So for example, long story short, these two researchers, Dunning and Kruger, they tried to figure out why it is that people who are the least competent think that they're the most competent. In other words, people who think that they're the best and think that they're the smartest are usually not there. They're usually at the bottom of that rung. So when it started was, I believe it was Dunning actually, was watching television, and there was a story about a guy who went to rob a bank. I believe it was lemon juice that he poured on his face before walking into the bank. And he just walked in, no mask, nothing, lemon juice, tried to rob the teller with a gun, walked out, walked right past all the surveillance cameras, everything. Cops got there, looked at the surveillance footage, and they knew the guy. He was a career criminal. He lived in the area. So they went to his house, found the money there, arrested him. And when he was being taken in, there was a camera, the news were there, and he said something to the effect of, "How did they see my face?" And he was like genuinely baffled, because when he put the lemon juice on his face, he was told by somebody, or in some way he believed, that because that was an ingredient that was in invisible ink, that somehow that would make your face invisible to the cameras. Now, when you hear that and you're like, what an idiot, how stupid is that? There's a lot of really stupid shit that we believe, man. I'm gonna offend some people here, but there are people who believe that you can tell what sex a baby is going to be based on where it's sitting on the woman's body. If it's high, it's gonna be a boy. If it's low, it's gonna be a girl. It's like, dude, that has nothing at all to do with that. That's not true. My mom guesses like half the time it's right. You know, it's got nothing to do with that. Putting Vicks on your feet. You know, putting socks on when you're sick. And it's not good. Going outside when it rains can get you sick. No, otherwise you get sick every time you take a shower. It's got nothing to do with anything. But we believe all kinds of just crazy off-the-wall stuff. Now, of course, we don't believe that, most of us don't believe that lemon juice on the face is going to stop a camera from seeing you, but we do believe some crazy stuff. I have this belief that people who are ticklish have a low threshold for pain. In other words, if you're a person who's ticklish, then you have a very low threshold for pain. If you're not ticklish, you have a very high threshold for pain. That makes sense, right? If you don't think about it too much, it makes sense. Now, how much evidence is there to support my belief? Zero. There's no evidence at all to support my belief in that. But it doesn't stop me from believing it. We'll believe in all kinds of crazy stuff. And sometimes the stuff that we believe in is just innocuous. In other words, it doesn't do anything negative. If you believe that you can determine the sex of a baby based on where it's sitting on the woman's body, that's not going to make the world a worse place in any way. If you believe that lemon juice on your face can stop cameras from seeing you, that will make the world a worse place. Certainly for you, and also for the potential victims. He could have killed somebody when he went into the bank. And so, the point is that these two guys investigated to figure out why it is that people who believe that they're really smart, like this guy just thought like he figured out the system. Just put lemon juice on your face. It's so easy. It's so simple. And what they discovered was that people who have a very high opinion of their own talents and their own abilities tend to be the least competent. People who have a somewhat mid view of themselves tend to be the most competent. In other words, if you're walking around and you think you're the smartest person in the room, you might be. But if you walk around thinking you're the smartest person in the room, there's a really good chance that you're not. So why is it? What makes up this gap right here is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Because this part right here, you don't know what you don't know. In other words, if you think that you're really smart, then you aren't open to learning anything, picking up anything. Especially if you think that people around you have nothing to teach you. It's like, man, I don't need this stuff. I don't need to know this. This person has nothing to teach me. Well, if that's the case, if there is something that can help you, if there is something to learn, you'd never notice it because you wouldn't be paying attention to it. It's like, when in life are you ever going to need to use calculus? People will say, I don't need no calculus. So then you don't bother to learn it. Now, are there situations in life when you can use calculus? And when? I don't know, but probably. Now, I can certainly say yes, 100%. There are times in life where you'll use calculus. I couldn't tell you what they are, but if calculus exists, then that means that people are using it in daily life in some way. But unless you know when to use it, it would never occur to you to use it. In other words, if you don't know when to use something, it would never occur to you that you didn't know it. You have to know that you don't know calculus in order to be able to look at the situation and say, crap, if I knew calculus, I could do this right now. You know, like there's one area I can think of. I love astronomy. I love space, planets, stars. I had to teach myself calculus just so I could understand astronomy. I wish I had learned it earlier, but I didn't. So I had to teach myself, learn it. Now, once I knew that, there was all kinds of things that opened up to you. And then what happens is the more you learn, the more you realize there's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. It's incredible. You know? Like I think about, I just think about like jiu-jitsu. There's a guy that I train with sometimes on the weekends. He's just incredibly humble, but really, really damn good, man. And when you become a black belt, they call you a professor. And normally it's like, 10 years or so to get a black belt. So by the time you get to that level, you've learned a lot of stuff. But then when you get to that level, you start to realize something, which is you don't know a lot. Like you think, like you know more than the average beginner. But man, once you realize, once you have enough of an understanding to see the whole world open up, now you realize there's a lot of stuff I don't know, man. And I train with these guys that just make me feel stupid. They make me feel like a white belt. They make me feel like a beginner because they're so damn good. And after that, you feel bad about yourself, so you have to go beat up on a beginner just to make yourself feel better, But these guys are so damn good. It's only because of my experience with them that I realized, wow, there's a lot I don't know. If I never left my gym, I'm the best guy in my gym, you never discover that there's stuff you don't know because you know more than everybody else. It never even occurs to you. So the point is that if you walk around thinking that you're smarter than everybody, or if you walk around thinking that you have nothing to learn from anybody, guess what? You're probably the least competent person in the room. And this bears out in life. You see it play out in life. That there are people who walk around thinking, I got it all figured out. They never do. Now again, this isn't, notice that the most competent people are not the ones who think the lowest of themselves. That's not true. They have a little bit more than average. A little bit more than average. So this is what I mean when I say, you don't know what you don't know. In order for you to understand some things about the world, you have to know some things about the world, which means you have to be open to learning about it. You have to be open to experience. You have to be open to examining yourself, to realize these things. And so that means it takes a bit of humility, some humbleness. And there's also, almost nothing in the world is going to humble you more than that understanding of eventual death. Now, the movie that you're talking about, there's a meteor headed for Earth, so you know. So think about that. What would you do if you knew that there was a meteor headed for Earth right now, and you've got 72 hours to live? One guy, you said he wants to spend time with his family. They have dinner together, right? That's the one, yeah. And they're sitting there having dinner together, past the salt or whatever, and the Earth's starting to rumble because the thing hits, and they're just sitting there acting like it's a normal family dinner. Probably because they never had normal family dinners. So to them, this was something extreme. So it's interesting to think about the things that you regret. And I really mean that, because the things that you regret teach you something a lot about yourself. This was a guy who was trying really hard to be famous. Then he realizes at the end that the fame didn't matter to him. Are there people for whom fame does matter? Of course. Of course. It's like when people say money doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Of course money matters. The only people who think money doesn't matter are people who have a lot of it and people who have none of it. But there is a big section of people in the middle. Now, does money matter the most? Well, that's going to be up to your value system. Okay, you tell me what matters the most. We have this tendency to say, like, money's the most important thing, or family's the most important thing, or this is the most important thing. But I guess I'd ask you, what's second place? What's third place? What's fourth place? And how do you manage those things? So I'm thinking about, especially towards the end of life, you ever, don't raise your hands, but something we're thinking about, I don't know if anybody in here's ever lost somebody, not lost them, you know where they are, but they were in like intensive care, and you had to make a decision about whether or not you're going to pull the plug on them. Or you let them sit there in a vegetative state. I don't know, what's the value of life in those cases? What would you want to do? But those people who hope for the death of the world, those are the people that are really concerning. And by the way, when I asked, if there are people like that, of course there are. Mass shooters are like that. School shooters are like that too. What stops them from killing everybody in the world? A lack of time and ammunition a lot of times. So the really deep question there is to figure out, why is it that a person would come to believe that the whole world just deserves to die? And there's a lot of people like that. And there's more and more of them every year. I saw this, I see it a lot actually, these bumper stickers when there's a presidential election, like in 2024, rather than having like Trump or Harris 2024, it says asteroid 2024. It's like an asteroid headed for Earth. It's like, oh, just wipe us all out. It's like, God, really, dude? Like whole Earth? Like I said, that's where I keep all my stuff. It's like, oh, but people are so bad. Yeah, but all the people you love are there too. Isn't there something worthwhile about that? Isn't there something there that's worth saving? And if it's a matter of like, yeah, there's no one there I love, well, then that's the issue. The issue's not the world. The issue is with you. What is it about you that you can't find things on this planet to love? And then if it's not like, well, because the world's so cruel and terrible, well, what are you if you think the whole world should die? You're the problem that you're complaining about. You're projecting it onto the world. Are there problems in the world? Of course. Like I said, any fifth grader can find those and point them out. But man, try to solve some of those problems. And if your solution to the problem is we'll just wipe everything out, again, there are words for people like that. I wonder if at the end of all of it, you would actually do it if you had the chance. I think there are people who would, of course. But how big is the solution going to be? But this is the idea. People who like that, why are they like that? Well, because they think only the death of the world can enable them to overcome their own inner deadness. So what is it that's really the problem there, like I said? It's you. It's you. I don't mean this in the sense of like, you're the problem. I mean this in the sense of like, God, 8 billion people on the planet, and they all find something to love. Something that keeps them going. Something that makes everything worthwhile. So what is it about you that you can't find that? And I ask that question not as a finger point, just something wrong with you. Of course there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with everybody. But that one thing is the thing that stops you from being able to enjoy the world, to enjoy life, to be happy, to be joyful, whatever word you want to use. So a big challenge of life is to try to find the things that make it all worthwhile. Again, you've probably heard this before. Life is suffering. But what you can do is to find something that makes the suffering worthwhile. Something that helps you to transcend that suffering. And then by doing so, you make the world a better place, certainly for yourself, and then you decrease the level of suffering in the world. And there isn't anything that's probably a more ambitious project or something that's more of an imperative in our lives, because you can't do anything else in life until you find the first thing, which is a reason to do it, to have a why. That's why I asked about that thing about regrets. It's worth figuring out what you regret. Because once you figure out what you regretted in life, hopefully now you can figure out what your values are, what's important to you. For that guy in the movie, family, I suppose. Some people, fame. Some people, money. Some people, a really good cheeseburger. And I mean that. I saw a guy yesterday, Benny's Burgers. They have a truck. This guy's just loves making cheeseburgers, man. I don't know what it is. Damn good cheeseburger too, by the way, if you come across him. So find something. That's all it is. Find something. It's hard. Find something everywhere you are. Are you ever going to need to use calculus? I don't know. But if you're there, you might as well learn it, because you're there anyway. People put so much effort into not learning things. Are you ever going to need to know biology? Yeah, like every day. But even then, find a reason then to use it. Whatever subject, whatever situation you're in, you're at work and you hate your job, find something there that makes it worthwhile. It's something that you can learn. There's always something you can learn. And if you don't think so, you don't know what you don't know. So, questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah.